That Sunday afternoon, as my truck rolled into the driveway, tires grinding over gravel, I blinked in disbelief, half convinced I'd veered into a circus sideshow. My tranquil expanse of land, normally a serene ocean of swaying grass and ancient oaks, had been ambushed by a scene ripped from a low-rent wedding planner's fever dream. Enormous white tents billowed in the wind. Cars were jammed nose to tail across my meadow. Kids shrieked, darting through the chaos with streamers trailing behind them. A band fiddled with their instruments, warming up as if they were about to steal the stage at a festival. My no trespassing signs shredded and stomped into the mud like forgotten artifacts. At the heart of this madness stood Karen, orchestrating the pandemonium like a frenzied maestro. Headset on, clipboard in hand, acting as if she'd claimed my land by divine right. I sat there, hands glued to the steering wheel, wondering if I'd slipped into an alternate reality where property lines were mere suggestions. Slowly, I climbed out of my truck, boots sinking into the churned-up earth, now a swampy mess from countless tires. I threaded through clusters of overdressed guests who shot me annoyed glares as if I were the one crashing their party. One woman, fussing with her glittering gown, actually huffed at me for brushing too close. As I neared the main tent, I spotted Karen in all her glory, barking commands at caterers lugging trays of food. Her hair was cemented into a helmet-like shape, her garish pink outfit screaming money, but no taste, like a walking bottle of antacid. I cleared my throat, standing just feet away, but she ignored me. Stepping closer, I said, voice steady but firm, that she needed to clear everyone off my property now. She whirled around, eyeing me like I was a pesky bug she couldn't be bothered to swat. "You weren't even using it," she scoffed, her tone as breezy as if we were chatting about the forecast. "It's just one day. Don't be such a killjoy." Her hand waved dismissively at the field, as if my land were a public park. I gaped, for at her, half expecting a prank show crew to leap out. But no, Karen was deadly serious, convinced she could seize my property because she wanted it more. A kid zipped between us, ribbons fluttering, nearly toppling a precarious flower arrangement. Karen didn't flinch. She turned her back, yammering into her headset about table settings and wine deliveries. For a moment, I stood frozen, my pulse hammering with fury and disbelief. These intruders had flattened my grass, parked on my septic tank, and dragged mud across my carefully tended landscaping. My vegetable patch lay crushed under careless feet. My signs were gone, torn down without a second thought. Every fiber of me screamed to roar, to rip down their tacky tents with my bare hands. But I'd met Karens before. Yelling would only fuel her theatrical victimhood. No, my counterstrike needed to be clever, ruthless, and gloriously gratifying. I spun on my heel, ignoring the guests' murmurs and stares, and strode toward my house. Behind me, a grating pop song blared, making my jaw clench. I stepped onto my porch, locked the door, and stared out the window, mind racing with options. Call the sheriff? Sure, but the damage was done, and they'd take hours to arrive. Sue Karen later? Maybe, but that was too slow, too tame. I needed something now, something to derail this fiasco and make Karen rue the day she crossed me. Then, it clicked. A slow, wicked grin spread across my face, like a predator spotting easy prey. In my garage, under a dusty tarp, lay my old paintball arsenal. Not just mine, but a half-dozen full kits from the days when my buddies and I ruled the local amateur circuit. Markers, grenades, gas tanks, camo gear. The works. Better yet, I knew my crew would come running at the promise of guilt-free chaos. I grabbed my phone, hands buzzing with anticipation, and fired off texts. Emergency paintball battle. My land. Trespassers. Bring it all. Replies flooded in. Laughing emojis, thumbs ups. Hell yeah. Some offered extra gear for the cause. It was on. By sundown, Karen's dream wedding venue would morph into a battlefield no event planner could fathom. I sat at my kitchen table, scribbling plans for barricades, sniper nests, and ambush points. This wasn't just a party anymore. It was my kind of party, and they weren't ready. Hours blurred by as I prepped. I hauled camo nets, plywood, barrels, and inflatable obstacles from my shed. My land was transforming into a tactical masterpiece, designed for surprise and humiliation. I rigged paintball grenades to trees with fishing line, hid markers in hay bales, and built bunkers from pallets. My heart pounded with glee as dawn approached. This wasn't just about defending my property anymore. It was personal. It was war. As the first rays of morning light crept over the horizon, my friends rolled in, trucks rumbling like a rogue militia. They spilled out in full camo, grinning ear to ear, toting duffels stuffed with gear. One handed me a canister of neon paintballs, so vivid they'd stain clothes for weeks. "You good for this?" he asked, barely stifling a laugh. I loaded a magazine, cocked my marker, and eyed the sleeping wedding camp, still blissfully unaware under their tents. "Good," I said. "They're in for a wake-up call." The morning air was sharp, scented with fresh grass and disturbed earth as we crept across the property, finalizing our battlefield. Every step buzzed with giddy focus. I'd split my crew into squads, each tasked with a zone. Hay bale bunkers, picnic table mazes draped in camo netting, even tripwires linked to paintball mines that had burst in a glorious spray of color. The wedding camp, still dozing, had no clue what lurked beyond their pristine tents. Occasionally, an early riser stumbled out for coffee or the bathroom, squinting in groggy confusion, too sleepy to notice the landscape had morphed into a guerrilla training ground. I crouched behind a barrel near the main tent, watching the stirrings of life. Dishes clinked inside, voices hummed, and a few polished guests emerged, sipping fancy drinks and adjusting their outfits. The band's screechy warm-up drifted across the field. Karen burst from an RV, already in a gaudy sequined jacket, snapping at two girls to set up breakfast. Her voice cut through the air, dripping with the smug assurance of someone who'd never heard no. I clenched my jaw but smirked inside. That was about to change, spectacularly. I flashed a hand signal to my buddies in the tree line. They raised their markers, silent and ready. I took a deep breath, adjusted my mask, and squeezed the trigger. The first paintball soared with a crisp pop, splattering vibrant yellow across the windshield of Karen's guest of honor car, a pristine white convertible parked brazenly by the tent. The impact echoed like a starting gun. Silence hung for a heartbeat. Then pandemonium erupted. More shots zipped through the air, splashing. Vivid hues across tables, chairs, and a catering van. Guests screamed, scattering like startled birds, diving behind anything solid. Pastries flew, dresses bloomed with neon stains, and the breakfast table crashed in a clatter of silverware. Karen froze, mouth flapping like a stranded fish, then let out a shriek that could have shattered glass, ducking behind a table that promptly collapsed. My squad advanced, popping up from hay bales and pallets, firing precise volleys into the fray. No one was hurt. We weren't savages, just pranksters with a point. Still, watching tuxedoed men belly flop into the grass and sequined women slip in mud was a joy no lawsuit could match. Paintballs buzzed like angry hornets, smacking RVs, tablecloths, and unlucky guests with expert aim. One bold groomsman charged my position, wielding a folding chair like a knight's shield. I waited, then lobbed a paint grenade at his feet. It exploded in a radiant green cloud, coating him head to toe. He stumbled, slipped, and landed with a wet splat. The deputies climbed out of their cruiser, scanning the chaos with slow, bemused glances. The taller one, a burly guy with a bushy mustache and sunglasses perched on his head, fought back a smirk. His partner, a shorter woman with a tight bun, kept her face neutral, though her eyes glinted with amusement. Karen flung herself at them, clutching the male deputy's arm, sobbing that a lunatic had ambushed her daughter's wedding. Pointing a trembling, paint-smeared finger at me, she wailed that I'd led a gang of armed maniacs to ruin her perfect day. I leaned against a splattered barrel, arms crossed, watching the drama unfold with a calm grin. The male deputy patted Karen's shoulder stiffly, his face composed but strained. "Ma'am, take a deep breath and walk us through it," he said, voice steady and professional. Karen unleashed a fresh wave of hysterics, ranting about rogue paintballers, unprovoked attacks, and shattered dreams. Meanwhile, the female deputy approached me, notepad in hand. "Sir," she said evenly, "care to share your side?" I nodded, pulling out my phone. With a few taps, I showed them footage from my security cameras, installed months ago after a neighbor's cows kept straying onto my land. The deputies watched clear shots of Karen's crew, tearing down my no trespassing signs, cars churning up my field, and my vegetable garden flattened. Karen herself strutted through, directing the invasion like a corporate boss, ignoring every posted warning. They exchanged a glance, then turned to Karen, still blabbering about felony charges and social exile. "Ma'am," the male deputy said cautiously, "the footage shows you and your guests entered private property without permission, causing significant damage." Karen froze, her mouth flapping silently. "It's not private!" she screeched. "It's just an empty field!" The female deputy raised an eyebrow. "Doesn't matter if it's used. It's private, clearly marked, and you had no right to." Karen's face contorted into a mask of fury and disbelief. She spun toward her guests for support, but they were too busy scraping paint off their clothes or sneaking to their cars. I decided to twist the knife a bit, casually mentioning the environmental havoc, mud pits where my land once lay smooth, a crushed septic system, trampled saplings, and deep ruts from the catering van tearing through my irrigation ditch. The deputies nodded, scribbling notes. The female deputy asked if I wanted to press charges. I flashed a polite smile. "Haven't decided, but I'll definitely pursue civil damages for trespassing, vandalism, and destruction." Karen let out a wail, half screech, half sob, clutching. Her ruined sequined jacket like a shield. Her makeup was a smeary disaster. "This is harassment," she howled. "He's the criminal." The male deputy adjusted his sunglasses. "Ma'am, you're not under arrest, but you'll be cited for trespassing and unlawful use of private property. Prepare for civil litigation." He began filling out citations, the pen's scratch cutting through the air. Karen staggered back, clutching her chest like a soap opera star. Guests slunk away, abandoning the wreckage. Cars peeled out, gouging the torn-up field further. Karen's pristine wedding setup now looked like a post-apocalyptic yard sale. Broken decorations, toppled tables, neon paint pooling in the sunlight. The caterers fled, muttering and shooting Karen wary glances. Even the band packed up quietly, the drummer flashing me a sly thumbs up as they left. After the paperwork, the deputies warned Karen against further harassment or retaliation, handed me incident reports, and shook my hand, promising a swift return if she tried anything else. As they drove off, I watched Karen standing alone amid the debris, shoulders slumped, face splotchy with rage and shame. Her dream wedding wasn't just ruined, it was a local legend in the making. I headed back to my house, the remnants of our paintball battlefield scattered across the property. The sun blazed, casting a golden glow over the multicolored chaos. Behind me, Karen's muttered curses faded. The victory was sweeter than I'd dreamed. As I stepped onto my porch, I glanced back at the ravaged field. Karen hadn't just tried to steal my land for a day. She'd challenged my pride, my rights, my peace. She'd misjudged me, and now she'd never forget the cost. The next morning, the battlefield still bore yesterday's scars, neon splashes, gleaming like a psychedelic explosion. My once calm meadow resembled a mad artist's war zone. Sipping coffee on my porch, I felt a deep satisfaction. Every sore muscle from hauling barricades and dodging paintballs was worth it. Birds circled, overhead, likely baffled by the garish colors below. Only one thing nagged at me. Karen wasn't the type to slink away quietly. Her kind always came back, scheming. Sure enough, by mid-morning, a black SUV roared up to my property's edge. Karen emerged, not in her ruined wedding garb, but a too-tight blazer, and a scowl big enough to block the sun. Her makeup was fixed, her hair slicked into a severe bun, a leather portfolio clutched like a weapon. She stomped up my driveway, heels sinking into the mud with every furious step. Part of me considered locking the door to watch her fume, but curiosity won out. What harebrained plan had she cooked up overnight? She didn't bother with pleasantries, launching into a tirade about lawsuits, claiming an attorney had assured her she could use my land under some nonsense called community event laws. She flung open her portfolio, revealing crumpled, unofficial-looking papers. Her voice grew shrill, drawing stares from neighbors tending their yards. Spotting the audience, Karen leaned into her role, gesturing wildly at the wreckage, and painting herself as the victim of a crazed, violent landowner. I let her rave for 3 minutes before raising a hand. Calmly, I asked if her attorney had mentioned the citations she'd received or the footage catching her trespassing and vandalizing. I noted the sheriff's nudge to press civil charges, which I was strongly considering. Karen's sneer twisted as she accused me of faking evidence and orchestrating a conspiracy. She even claimed I'd invited her onto my land and was now pulling a vicious stunt for profit. I kept my cool, reminding her she'd never been invited, had ripped down my signs, and repurposed my property without a word. I pointed to the cameras, blinking red on my house and fence posts, still recording. Karen faltered, her bravado cracking as her eyes darted to the lenses. Muttering about unfair treatment, she stormed off, peeling out in a spray of mud. I sighed, set down my coffee, and got to work. I called my lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense guy who'd handled property disputes before. I sent him the footage, police reports, and photos of the damage. We drafted a civil suit for property destruction, emotional distress, cleanup costs, and unauthorized land use. He assured me Karen was cornered, likely forced to settle to salvage her tattered reputation. In the days that followed, the wedding fiasco went viral locally. Social media buzzed with tales, some calling it a full-on tactical raid with paint, grenades and snipers, others claiming Karen tried to erect a Ferris wheel before paintball commandos intervened. The truth was wild enough, but the rumors turned it mythic. Strangers stopped me to shake my hand, clapping me on the back for taking down the Karen of the century. Some offered to help clean up, not out of duty, but to join the legend. Karen, meanwhile, became a pariah. Her friends ghosted her. Vendors demanded payment, threatening lawsuits. Her HOA called an emergency meeting on public conduct. Her online rants, misspelled screeds about injustice, only fueled the fire, with screenshots spreading like wildfire. Each outburst added to her public meltdown. One afternoon, while stacking firewood, a courier dropped off a letter from Karen's new attorney, offering a settlement. Full property damages, plus a bonus if I agreed to stay silent and drop further. Action. I chuckled, handing it to my lawyer. He grinned, calling it a white flag. Within a week, we finalized a deal covering repairs, cleanup, and long-planned land upgrades. As the dust settled, I replanted the crushed areas with grass and wildflowers, using the settlement to add topsoil and irrigation. I built picnic benches by the pond, a private oasis born from Karen's defeat. Karen vanished from the spotlight, retreating to obscurity where her infamy wouldn't follow. Justice wasn't just served. It arrived in neon bursts, laughter, and a community united behind property rights, respect, and a touch of mischief. Walking my land, green and free again, I smiled. Karen had tried to steal a piece of it, but only made it more mine than ever. I sat on my porch, watching families pack up their paintball gear as kids romped through the field, chasing each other under the golden sunset. The new grass swayed, speckled with fading paint stains, cheerful scars of our victory. Neighbors waved farewell, shouting promises to return for next year's bigger bash. The mayor, stuffed into a too small camo shirt, clapped my back, declaring, my stand would be remembered for decades. Later, under a star-streaked sky, I sat alone, the cool night air settling around me like a familiar cloak. I reflected on how fast life could swing from calm to chaos and back. How people could stun you with their arrogance or their warmth. How vital it was to hold your ground, even when letting someone like Karen steamroll you seemed easier. This land wasn't just dirt and trees. It was me, my principles, and the quiet fights waged daily by those who won't be shoved aside. Somewhere, I pictured Karen still seething, scheming a comeback that'd never land. But here, there was only peace, laughter, and the certainty that the best wins aren't in courtrooms or wallets, but in the stubborn refusal to bow to bullies. The stars twinkled above, winking like the universe itself was in on the joke. Sometimes, just sometimes, the good guys win in a blaze of paint-soaked glory. As I stood, stretching, I spotted the handmade trophy on the porch railing, its glitter catching starlight. I smiled, carried it inside, and set it on the mantel. No matter what came next, that scrappy piece of painted wood would always stand for one unshakable truth. This land was mine, and no Karen, however loud or entitled, could ever take that away. The weeks after felt almost dreamlike, as if the land itself exhaled in relief alongside me. The air was crisper, the sky brighter, each new blade of grass a tiny triumph. Mornings found me roaming the property, checking new plantings and fixing what the wedding invasion had broken. Life was settling, but it was a bolder, prouder normal, where the land felt safer, more cherished, more alive. Passing the old oak by the driveway, I'd chuckle, picturing that bridesmaid scrambling up it in her sequined dress to dodge paintballs. The battle was unforgettable, but instead of rage, it sparked deep, satisfying mirth. Karen's downfall wasn't just a tale, it was etched into this place, woven into the soil, and the laughter carried on the breeze. The town embraced the memory in its own way. It started with quips at the general store, and knowing winks from farmers at the feed shop. Soon, it grew bigger. Someone floated the idea of an annual event to celebrate the day paintballs humbled hubris. Within a month, flyers advertised the first Paintball Freedom Festival, set on my land with my full blessing. The concept was simple. A friendly, community-wide paintball match, open to all. Pure fun. No lawsuits. Local businesses donated prizes, the fire department set up food stalls, and a hardware store sponsored a Best Outfit award. It was absurd, perfect, and just what the town craved. Festival day dawned bright, the sky a vast, unbroken blue. Families arrived with coolers, kids in goggles and DIY gear. The mayor, grinning in his undersized camo, dubbed himself referee. We set up obstacle courses, capture the flag zones, and no trespassing lanes where the wedding tent once stood, now marked with bold banners. Music blared, laughter rang out, and paint bursts filled the air like confetti. Everything Karen's. Event wasn't. Permitted, joyful, respectful. As the games raged, folks swapped tales of the original clash, each wilder than the last. Some swore Karen swung a champagne bottle like a saber. Others claimed a guest rallied a counterattack with a tablecloth and cheese platter. The stories grew taller, funnier, with no one bothering to fact-check. Truth had morphed into legend, and that felt right. Karen's arrogance aimed to steal something, but instead, she gifted the town a shared saga, a symbol of defiance, and a reason to unite in laughter. Mid-festival, as I leaned against a hay bale sipping lemonade, a little girl in oversized paintball gear waddled up, handing me a handmade trophy of spray-painted wood and glitter. Best Defender of the Land, it read in shaky letters. Her dad, a mechanic from the next town, nodded proudly behind her. I accepted it with a grin, a surprising lump in my throat. It was a small, silly thing, but it meant everything. Ain, testament to not just revenge or victory, but restoring pride and joy to what could have been soured by spite. As the sun dipped and the festival wound down, the land glowed, alive with the day's energy. The paint stains would fade, but the memory, the trophy, the laughter, they'd endure, proof that standing tall could turn chaos into something beautiful.